a small pillar of golden flame rising from the ground where he stood, having saved both his cousin and her brave leader just in time. As Fang Yi floated in a bright aura of golden light, just his presence was enough to overwhelm the deathly vine. The surviving members of the pioneer squad watched in stunned silence as the monstrous plant, which had just been moments from killing them all, stopped its attack and began to pull back from the overwhelming yang energy. The tendrils pulled back from the intense light, hissing and dissolving as they retreated. As Fang Yi came down, surrounded in a radiant glow, the pioneers could only cover their eyes from the blinding light, barely able to understand what was happening. The practical male pioneer who had suggested leaving Yi was completely shocked, questioning if this newcomer was another pioneer. The red-haired leader, just as stunned, recognized the power for what it was, the purest form of the yang attribute. She knew that only a high-tier power of this level could possibly push back such a powerful, life-draining monster. The male pioneer had a crisis of confidence. He had always thought of himself as extremely talented, having reached the 3-star Ghost Axe realm in a very short time, a feat few in the country could match. He knew that even the talented Lin Yi's skill barely matched his own, and yet this mysterious stranger was on a completely different level. He looked down at his own hands, then up at the glowing figure on the clifftop, feeling completely insignificant. If pioneers like that existed, he wondered, then what were they? The newcomer hadn't just beaten him, he had beaten all of them with his pure, overwhelming power. As Fang Yi stood bathed in the golden light of his power, his system activated. It had detected the extreme wood attribute from the deathly vine and had started the auto-writing process, quickly finishing a new technique. The system window then showed the details of his new ability. Endless Vitality, a technique that could instantly absorb all nearby life force to quickly heal injuries. As the power of the vine flowed into him, he was surrounded in a surge of green, life-giving energy. He was amazed at the incredible wood attribute technique he had just gotten, realizing that as long as there was life nearby, he now had what was basically a non-stop energy-absorbing engine. As Fang Yi absorbed the last of the anomaly's power, his system successfully extracted the vine's main attribute. A notification confirmed it. Extracted attribute, Desolation. The system described its scary power, the ability to instantly create a desolate aura that would destroy all surrounding life. Fang Yi stood calmly in the swirling green energy, fully taking in the new power. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with the same vibrant green as the desolate vine. He stood in the now lifeless clearing, a faint green aura around him. He now understood why the vine could only grow in such a dangerous, remote place. If it grew anywhere else, it would drain every bit of life for miles around. He thought about the ruthless nature of the Desolation attribute, a powerful force that forcibly stole the life force of others. His thoughts were interrupted by a grateful voice. The red-haired leader of the pioneer group approached, her clothes torn and her body bruised, but she was alive. She thanked him greatly, saying that without him, they would all be dead. She then asked how they could possibly repay him for saving their lives. Fang Yi simply waved her off, coolly telling her there was no need and that they would meet again someday. He then turned and walked away. In his mind, however, he didn't feel like a hero. He knew that he had only found this opportunity because of their information. In his mind, he was the one who had benefited from the situation. As for the conflict he had seen among the pioneers, he wasn't concerned. With a final leap, he launched himself into the air, leaving the stunned squad behind. He knew that people's true characters are easily shown in a crisis, and a disorganized team like theirs would not be safe in the dangerous new era. Left in the empty clearing, the adventurous girl and the shaggy-haired man watched him go. The girl, still in shock, wondered aloud what they should do now. The man, however, answered her with a bitter, blaming tone, asking if she now regretted her earlier hesitation to save their teammates. With the immediate threat gone, and Lin Yi now at the 3rd tier, the red-haired leader knew their best option was to stick together. Sometime later, Yi's eyes opened, glowing a brilliant blue as she came out of her meditation. Her teammates rushed to her side, relieved she was finally awake. The male pioneer who had suggested leaving her now said that their fate depended on their leader's wisdom, but another teammate said their focus should be on the mysterious stranger who had saved them. Still confused, Yi asked what had happened, noticing her other teammates lying unconscious on the ground. She stood up and was immediately hit by the powerful burning warmth of a leftover yang attribute on a nearby tree. She could feel its intense heat even from a distance. The shaggy-haired man then stepped forward, offering to explain what had happened while she was unconscious. Later that day, back in front of her cousin's apartment, Yi was still trying to understand the incredible events. She couldn't believe that someone so powerful actually existed. Her teammate's words echoed in her mind. He had called the mysterious pioneer a monster. He had described how the vines they couldn't even scratch had been easily pushed back by his power, and how the massive beanstalk had retreated far into the sky, no longer daring to come near them. Such was the overwhelming presence of the man who had saved them. She knew that even though he was long gone, the vine was still calm, a sign of his lingering power. She opened the door to the apartment and was surprised to find Fang Yi there to greet her. He looked at her with concern, noticing that she looked a little pale. Yi quickly pulled herself together, forcing a smile as she brushed off his concern, blaming her tiredness on a long day of studying. Fang Yi accepted her excuse, telling her she had worked hard and should go rest. He offered to order takeout for dinner, and she agreed before heading to her room. Once inside, she collapsed onto her bed, completely exhausted. She knew that breakthroughs were mentally draining, requiring a lot of concentration. She felt more tired than if she had stayed up for a month straight. Lying on her bed and scrolling through her phone, she felt a sense of relief. She was no longer an ordinary person. She wouldn't die from a few all-nighters. She accepted that this constant, life-threatening struggle was the fate of a pioneer in a world where things had begun to change. She thought of her cousin's seemingly normal, peaceful life and knew that such a life was no longer possible for her. Her quiet thoughts were interrupted by a new message in her Pioneer group chat. It was from a user named Jiaolan, the mysterious, powerful member who was usually absent. Jiaolan had sent a simple, direct message. "If there are any more traces of that strong man, please inform me." This was the first time Jiaolan had ever spoken in the group, and it immediately got Yi's attention. She replied, agreeing to the request, before asking her own question to the group. She asked if they thought the man who had saved them could be the same one from the Dark River Lava Dragon incident, and if so, why he would have helped them. The group chat immediately lit up with a post about the mysterious high-tier Yang attribute master. The post described his sun-splitting slash in great detail, telling how the witness had been forced out of the cave by a blast of white-hot light. The author of the post declared with total certainty that no other pioneer in the Xia country could match his power, and warned everyone to stay away if they ever met him. Meanwhile, Fang Yi was heading out for the evening on his bicycle. He was confident that after the day's events, his cousin would have let her guard down around him, letting him come and go without making her suspicious. With his new freedom, he had a new mission in mind. It was time to find a suitable carrier for his new desolation attribute. He knew that this power was most compatible with plants, and he pedaled off into the night to begin his search. As he rode through the night, Fang Yi thought about the best way to use his newly acquired desolation attribute. He knew that despite its power, it was still a bad attribute at its core, based on destruction and decay. He worried that putting it on his own body could lead to bad reactions. Furthermore, he was concerned that its evil nature might conflict with the good, purifying power of his thunder attribute. He decided that the best solution would be to find a carrier for the attribute, something like the strange vine itself. He guessed that the original vine monster had been born when a regular plant sensed the return of rich spiritual energy and chose to evolve, creating the desolation attribute as a way to gather more power. With this in mind, a plan began to form in his mind. With a confident smirk, he knew exactly where he needed to go. He followed a moonlit road, guided by a sign pointing toward the forest park. He arrived at the large urban park and left his bike, going into the woods. Under the bright full moon, he walked through a field of vibrant, glowing flowers. He knew he needed to find the perfect lucky one, a plant that could create the greatest connection with his own spiritual energy and show a sense of closeness to him. Closing his eyes, he focused, reaching out with his own spiritual energy. A vibrant green aura flowed from him, spreading throughout the forest and covering the plants. He could feel a response from the plants, a wave of their own spiritual energy rising up to meet his. He noted that while their response was a lot, it still wasn't strong enough for what he needed. As Fang Yi continued to send out his spiritual energy, he realized he needed a much stronger response from the plants around him. Suddenly, he stopped, his attention drawn to a specific spot in the forest. There, in the tall grass, a single white flower with a glowing center gently swayed, as if calling to him. He wondered if this was the one he had been searching for. He approached it carefully and reached out his finger. As his fingertip touched it, the flower's petals closed around it, and he could feel it absorbing the spiritual energy he was giving off. The flower then bloomed again, seemingly happy, as if it had just had a good meal. Fang Yi knelt beside the flower, a small smile on his face. He noted its strong spirituality. Though it was just a plant, it had reacted to his touch like a greedy puppy, eagerly eating his spiritual energy and then rubbing against his fingers for more. He knew he had found his carrier. Out of the entire forest, this small flower had the strongest reaction to his aura, making it the perfect container for the desolation attribute. He told the flower that it was the chosen one and asked if it was ready. Without waiting for an answer, he unleashed a vortex of green spiritual energy, focusing it entirely on the small white flower. A system window appeared, asking for confirmation. Do you want to forcibly implant the desolation attribute into this plant? With his eyes glowing a vibrant green, he gave his consent. A brilliant light erupted from his hand as the flower began to transform, its petals opening into a much larger, more complex, and powerful form. The implantation process was finished in a bright flash of green light. Fang Yi was surprised for a moment by the sudden burst of power. The small, simple white flower had been completely changed. Its petals had opened into a beautiful, lotus-like flower, and its leaves had grown thick and bright, all of it glowing with a powerful green aura. The newly powered flower immediately began to show its influence. It released a massive wave of desolation energy, its roots digging into the ground as it drew power. The effect was instant and destructive. The green, healthy forest around Fang Yi was drained of its life in seconds, the trees dying and the ground turning to dust. He was amazed at the pure, evil power of the desolation attribute. In just a few moments, the energy had eaten the entire section of the forest and was still spreading quickly. As the flower's light began to fade and its form shrank to a smaller size, Fang Yi knew he had to leave. If he let the process go on any longer, the huge energy disturbance would surely get the attention of the Spiritual Energy Association. He reached down and plucked the glowing flower from the ground, roots and all. He knew this park was a risky place for such an experiment. Being so close to the city center, it was certainly watched by the association, who were worried about how the spiritual energy revival could turn even normal plants into dangerous threats. He had noticed the increased number of security cameras and the lack of any other people in the park when he arrived. As he walked away, holding his new prize, he noticed something incredible. The flower was still absorbing energy from the air, surviving and even doing well without its roots connected to the earth. He looked at it more closely, a smile of wonder on his face. He found it magical that its spirituality hadn't weakened at all since being pulled up, especially since it had been just an ordinary wildflower moments before he chose it. This led him to a deep conclusion. By giving the desolation attribute to the plant, he had unlocked its evolutionary potential, setting it on a path to becoming something far greater than it was ever meant to be. Just as Fang Yi was about to leave the park, a loud alarm blared through the forest, its red light flashing. A loud robotic voice gave a serious warning. Abnormal value exceeded. Fang Yi immediately realized that even though he tried to be quick, he had still set off the park's monitoring system. With no time to waste, he grabbed his newly acquired desolation flower and quickly left. Miles away, in a high-tech control room labeled Spiritual Energy Revival Plant Research Department, the same alarms blared. Technicians scrambled, shouting that the anomaly value was going crazy and demanding to know what was happening. An order was quickly given. All staff were to put on their protective bracelets, enter the park, and immediately block off the area, stopping anyone from entering or leaving. A team in full protective gear entered the now lifeless section of the forest. One member checked the reading on his wrist device, which showed a dangerously high value of 30. He noted that this was terrifyingly high. For comparison, the incident at Qingcheng University had only ranged between 8 and 10, and even the powerful Dark River Lava Dragon had peaked at 25. Another team member added that the park's original spiritual energy level had never even gone above 10. As one of the researchers took a soil sample, another reported his strange findings. The air humidity, surface temperature, and sunlight were all completely normal. Yet, all the plants in the area looked as if they had been drained of their life in a matter of seconds. The team leader decided they needed to get closer to the center to figure out what kind of spiritual attribute could have caused such an event. However, as one of the members stepped forward, another researcher with glasses, who seemed to be a senior member, shouted at him to stop and not get any closer. He warned them with serious authority not to touch anything, identifying the leftover energy as the desolation attribute. He then asked if any of them knew about the vine that had recently come down from the sky. The younger researchers were stunned into silence. One of them finally found his voice, realizing with growing horror that the senior researcher was talking about the infamous, devil-like vine that had already been classified as an A-level mutation. The senior researcher confirmed their fears. Standing before a ghostly image of the vine with the souls of its victims trapped at its base, he explained the source of its terrifying power. The reason it was so deadly, the reason it had killed so many pioneers, was its natural desolation attribute, a powerful parasitic ability that drained the life force from all surrounding creatures, making everything it touched its own. The young researcher, who had been about to step into the dead area, clutched his chest, sweating and gasping in terror. He thanked his superior, realizing that he had just been saved from certain death. The senior researcher explained that the area around any plant that had awakened the desolation attribute was a dead zone, where anyone who entered would have their life force eaten. He remembered seeing data on another such plant in the Xia country, a rotting ancient tree in a forbidden zone in Wan City that instantly destroyed any life that came near it. He looked around at the lifeless clearing with serious concern, noting that the mutation of plants in this new era could not be ignored. From what they knew, the desolation attribute was the strongest a plant could awaken, and now, in addition to the ancient tree and the celestial vine, a third had been born. His lecture was interrupted by a hand clapping him on the shoulder. The research team turned in surprise to see the stern face of Major Han Li, who had arrived with his own group of soldiers. The major had already been told about the situation. He ordered all the researchers on site to change into the advanced protective suits his men had brought, and to follow him into the contaminated area. With Major Han Li leading the way, the newly equipped team, now joined by Su Qingying, stepped firmly into the dead zone. As they moved forward with their scanners, they made a series of confusing discoveries. They couldn't find a source for the desolation energy, and the aura itself was quickly fading, the level having dropped to 25 in the few minutes since they arrived. This went against what they knew about the celestial vine, which was supposed to be able to move. Major Han Li turned to Su Qingying, suggesting they investigate the area more closely. She agreed, her expression serious. As Major Han Li and Su Qingying began their investigation, two members of the team with glowing blue auras started tracing the flow of the leftover spiritual energy. The energy trails led them from the outer edges of the dead zone back to a single starting point. As they got closer, they stopped, their faces filled with shock. The Major and Su Qingying realized the horrifying truth at the same time. The source of the desolation energy had been dug up and taken away. A researcher in a protective suit couldn't believe what he was hearing, questioning how such a thing was even possible. Major Han Li knew that if someone truly had the power to enter a desolation dead zone and steal its source, their identity was extremely important. Su Qingying, however, had another theory. She showed a glowing data pad to the Major, explaining that after running a big data analysis, they had found a person whose movements matched both this incident and another recent mutation. The file on the screen showed a picture of Fang Yi, his name clearly visible. Just then, Major Li told Su Qingying that he would send her all of Fang Yi's information, confirming that he was highly likely the same pioneer she had been in contact with. With that, he tipped his hat, saying the rest was up to her association to handle. Left alone in the desolate woods, Su Qingying held the datapad, her expression one of grim understanding. 2 hours later, back in his apartment, Fang Yi carefully placed his new desolation flower into a small pot. He smiled, thinking that this was his first time raising a flower. He affectionately named it the obedient little white flower, and told it that since it now had the desolation attribute, it would cultivate on its own and become a powerful helper for him. He knew its special, life-draining powers would be a great help in battle, and its simple appearance would be the perfect camouflage, easily hidden from his cousin. As he gently touched a petal, he thought that in the dangerous new world, raw power was only part of the equation. The real key to victory was having more secret weapons. Fang Yi's quiet evening was interrupted by his phone buzzing on the table. He picked it up, surprised to see the caller ID, Old Wang. He immediately recognized the name as his childhood friend, Wang Liang, whom he hadn't seen in the 3 years since he'd left to join the army. A brief flashback showed the two as close friends in their school days, a bond that was broken when Wang Liang suddenly announced his decision to enlist. Fang Yi answered the call. On the other end, Wang Liang's cheerful voice greeted him, asking if he was back in town and inviting him out for a drink at their old spot. Fang Yi was taken aback by how sudden it all was. Wang Liang just laughed, adding that he had a big secret to tell him and that he shouldn't be shocked when he heard it. However, The seemingly friendly reunion was a carefully planned setup. After hanging up the phone, it was revealed that Wang Liang was not alone. He was in a dimly lit room, reporting to a tough and heavily scarred woman with long red hair and a high-ranking military uniform. Su Jingying was also at the table. Wang Liang confirmed to the officer that he had done as instructed. He then made a special request, asking that if Fang Yi was not the person they were looking for, they would guarantee his safety. The red-haired officer tapped her finger impatiently on the table. She coldly dismissed his concern, ordering him to simply do his mission and not do anything unnecessary. With a chilling lack of feeling, she added that if Fang Yi turned out to be the wrong person, Wang Liang should just consider it a punishment for his friend. At a quiet bar, Fang Yi and Wang Liang toasted with their beer glasses. They sat and drank, catching up after being apart for 3 years. Fang Yi noticed his old friend seemed much more mature and guessed that his time in the army must have been hard. Wang Liang talked about his experiences in the military before asking Fang Yi how he had been. Fang Yi gave a simple reply, saying he was doing well and had gone to college. As he drank his beer, he thought back to his past life. In that chaotic time, he never had the chance to see Wang Liang again. He remembered that his friend, as a soldier, had probably died in some forgotten battle. He wondered if this time, in this new life, he could change his old friend's fate. Wang Liang then changed the subject, his tone becoming more serious. He asked Fang Yi if he had seen anything strange lately, like zombies or monsters from movies. Fang Yi was immediately on guard. He knew it wasn't surprising for someone in the army to know about the spiritual energy revival, but the direct question felt like a test to see what he knew. Playing dumb, Fang Yi asked what he was trying to say. Wang Liang sighed and explained that he wasn't trying to comfort him, but to warn him. He told Fang Yi that in the near future, everything they valued, education, wealth, status, would become worthless. The entire world order was about to change. Fang Yi listened closely, his face showing no emotion as he stared at his empty glass. He knew that ordinary soldiers were sworn to secrecy and couldn't leak any details about the spiritual energy revival. This confirmed his suspicion. The military had identified him as a target, and Wang Liang, his childhood friend, had been sent to test him. Wang Liang, seeing his friend's silence, tried to reassure him. He told him not to worry, that as long as he didn't reveal anything, he would be fine. But Fang Yi understood the situation. Despite his pretended ignorance, his friend was still trying to help him. Even at the risk of breaking military rules, Wang Liang was kindly warning him to be careful of the coming changes. Their conversation was suddenly cut short when Wang Liang's phone began to vibrate urgently. He answered the call, and a furious voice on the other end ordered him to return to his team immediately and report to the target location within 10 minutes. Wang Liang snapped to attention, accepting the order as Fang Yi watched in silence. He immediately jumped up, apologizing to Fang Yi and explaining that he had an urgent mission and couldn't see him home. As his friend was about to leave, Fang Yi dropped his act. He asked if the mission was related to the spiritual energy revival and told his friend to take him along. Wang Liang stopped, turning back to look at Fang Yi with a mix of shock and confusion. Fang Yi stood up and grabbed his friend by the collar. He told Wang Liang to take him to see his superiors, letting him know that he was aware of the real reason for their meeting. He reassured his friend, telling him that while he didn't know exactly what his superiors knew, he knew Wang Liang would never hurt him. He explained that he was more interested in what the military was dealing with, knowing it had to be related to the great changes happening in the world. Since the Spiritual Energy Association was already handling the monsters, he was curious what the military's role was, and he wanted to see it for himself. Wang Liang agreed, and the two of them walked toward a massive, heavily guarded military base in a mountain valley, labeled Military Number 19 Spiritual Forbidden Zone. As they got closer, Fang Yi was struck by the incredibly dense spiritual energy in the area. He noted that the concentration level was so high it had likely surpassed a standard pollution zone. As they were met by a squad of soldiers, one of them ordered Wang Liang to return to his team. After a quick check, the soldiers allowed Fang Yi to enter the base, leading him through a brightly lit corridor. Inside the military base, Fang Yi and Wang Liang were led into a massive, cavern-like training ground. There, a large group of soldiers was in a desperate battle, using crackling blue energy to hold back a monstrous, spiky black creature with a single glowing red eye. The beast fought back with fierce power, shooting a devastating beam of red energy that tore through the soldiers' ranks, causing cries of pain and fear. Standing on a raised platform, the tough, red-haired officer watched the scene with a critical eye. Fang Yi, who had been brought before her, immediately recognized the creature's power as a mix of two different attributes. The officer confirmed his thought, saying the monster was a perfect mix of the dark and flame attributes, making it exceptionally fierce and cruel. She added that it had already seriously injured several of her soldiers. A caption identified her as a 3-star Ghost Axe Realm officer named Ji Royan. Spotting Wang Liang, she barked his name, and he immediately stood at attention. She furiously asked why he had brought an unauthorized person into a restricted area, but before he could explain, she cut him off. Her expression softened a little as she told him to forget it, explaining that the situation was urgent and they needed him to join the formation immediately. She then turned her attention to Fang Yi. She saw nothing special about him, noting that his spiritual energy was only slightly active. She briefly wondered if he was the powerful pioneer they were looking for, but dismissed the thought, knowing she had to focus on the battle. She gave him a stern warning. Since he was Wang Liang's friend, she wouldn't say much, but he was in a restricted area, and his life was now his own responsibility. He was also sworn to secrecy about anything he saw. Fang Yi simply replied that he understood. With that done, Ji Royan took command. She picked up a massive energy cannon and shouted the names of 2 of her soldiers. The 2 men immediately jumped into action, their bodies covered in blue energy as they fought the monster up close. Ji Royan then aimed her cannon and fired a massive blast of pure energy at the creature. The attack hit the monster head-on, creating a huge explosion, but the creature was far from beaten. It let out an angry roar as its shadowy form began to pulse with a terrifying red light, its fanged mouth growing larger and more threatening. It was clear that the attack had only made it angrier, causing its mutation to get worse. The enraged monster lashed out with its massive claws, and one soldier shouted a warning to his comrade. The other soldier managed to block the attack, but the force of the blow sent him flying backward. Ji Royan immediately took charge, ordering her team not to be careless and to keep their distance. She knew they had to finish the creature off before it could complete its evolution. Watching from the side, Fang Yi was impressed by the soldier's performance. He saw a well-trained team of comrades who trusted each other completely, with incredible discipline and coordination. He knew that every person was essential, and that when they worked together, they could unleash a power far greater than their individual strengths. This thought, however, was immediately broken when he realized the monster's power was increasing at a scary rate. He shouted at them to run, warning them that they were no match for the creature in its current state. But his warning was lost in the chaos. The monster shot out a massive blast of dark purple energy, sending the soldiers flying. Ji Royan refused to back down. She ordered her team to raise their alert level and upgrade the restricted area's mutation level. With a furious roar, she commanded that no one was to retreat. It was too late. The monster's transformation was complete. It now stood as a huge, demonic beast, covered in black and red flames, its eyes glowing with pure evil. One of the soldiers shouted a terrified warning. The evil dog had fully mixed with the dark attribute and completed its mutation. The creature's single eye, now a burning red orb, focused on a new target. It fixed its gaze on Wang Liang, who could only stare back, frozen in terror. As the monster prepared to strike, Ji Royan and Fang Yi both reacted in horror, realizing with a jolt that Wang Liang was in mortal danger. Just as the monster completed its evolution, lunging forward in a blast of power, a soldier was violently thrown backward by a surge of energy. Ji Royan immediately shouted for her team's attention, announcing that the C-level evil dog had fully mutated and was now reclassified as a B-level threat, requiring an immediate change in their battle plan. The soldier who had been thrown to the ground coughed up a spray of blood. Fang Yi rushed to his side, catching him and asking if he was all right. The injured soldier explained that he had been trying to send spiritual energy to the monster's restraining collar, but the creature's evolution had caused the device to violently explode. Despite coughing up a black, thick liquid, the soldier tried to be brave, telling Fang Yi not to worry about the officers of Restricted Area 19. Fang Yi could only look on with a grim, angry expression. Realizing her normal weapons were now useless, Ji Royan dropped her heavy energy cannon to the ground. She stood before her remaining troops, her determination unshaken. She gave a final, desperate order. No matter what they had to do, even if it cost them their very lives, they could not let this B-level mutation escape the restricted zone. But just as she and her team were about to make their last stand, Fang Yi stepped directly in front of her, blocking her path. Ji Royan demanded to know what he thought he was doing, but he ignored her. His eyes and hand began to glow with a brilliant blue light as arcs of raw lightning crackled around him, a clear sign that he was about to join the battle himself. Surrounded by crackling blue lightning, Fang Yi mocked the monstrous creature, his eyes glowing with power as he questioned how tough it was. He then charged toward the mutated beast, his arm a bolt of bright blue energy aimed right at the creature's head. The impact was huge, as a massive explosion of divine thunder erupted when he hit it, completely overwhelming the monster. The sheer force of the attack created a powerful shockwave that sent the nearby soldiers flying backward. One of the soldiers, stunned, said he couldn't believe it, realizing this was the same B-level monster that even their commander, Ji Royan, couldn't beat alone. Wang Liang, just as shocked, turned to Ji Royan and asked if his friend was really who they thought he was. With a serious look, she confirmed that none of them were wrong. She declared that he was, without a doubt, the pioneer known as the Tyrant. Fang Yi stood calmly before the beast, which was still on fire but clearly hurt by the lightning. Seeing it wasn't completely beaten, he noted that he would have to finish the job. He then told Ji Royan and Wang Liang to stand back for their own safety. Ji Royan watched him, thinking about how her whole squad needed a complex formation just to face a B-level threat, yet he was getting ready to handle it all by himself. She wondered what kind of power he had. She had to admit that his was the most extreme form of the thunder attribute she had ever seen. She knew that even now, he was a top-tier pioneer in the entire country, and she began to wonder about his potential once the spiritual energy revival was fully underway. As Fang Yi raised his hand, gathering even more electrical energy, a shocked look appeared on Ji Royan's face. She looked up to see a massive storm of thunder energy forming in the sky above him, and she couldn't help but wonder just how scary his power would become as he continued to evolve. With a final step forward, Fang Yi unleashed the full power of his thunder attribute. A massive pillar of bright blue lightning erupted from the ground where the monster stood, a display of power that truly matched his codename, the Tyrant. His eyes, still crackling with leftover electricity, showed a calm determination as the blinding light from his attack began to fade. The surviving soldiers watched in terror. One commented to another that the sight made his whole body shake. While he could handle the monster's corrosive dark power, the pure, destructive force of the thunder was on a completely different level. Once the dust settled, Fang Yi casually gave a thumbs up to his friend, announcing that the threat was gone. Wang Liang rushed over, shouting with relief that Fang Yi had scared him to death. Overjoyed, Wang Liang playfully punched his friend on the shoulder, laughing that he never expected his old buddy to be so powerful. The mood then shifted as Wang Liang apologized, admitting he had suspected Fang Yi was a pioneer but had to follow orders. Fang Yi brushed it off, asking why his friend was being so formal after 3 years apart and telling him he understood. Their reunion was interrupted as Ji Royan approached them. She formally thanked Fang Yi for his help, extending her hand as a sign of respect. With a slight smile, Fang Yi accepted her thanks. He shook her hand, replying that it was no trouble and that he had mainly acted to save his friend. She then formally introduced herself as Ji Royan, the warden in charge of Forbidden Area 019. She explained that since he had saved the entire base, she needed to file a proper report and asked if he would be willing to leave his contact information. Fang Yi agreed without hesitation, while Wang Liang watched from the side, silently amazed at the strange experience of seeing his tough commanding officer act so respectfully toward his childhood friend. With the formalities done, Ji Royan made a direct and serious offer. She said that Fang Yi's strength was greater than many of the military's own special pioneers and formally invited him to join the army. However, she admitted that an invitation from a single base warden like herself was probably not enough to convince him. Inwardly, she was still trying to grasp the sheer scale of his power. What shocked her most was the realization that he was also a 3-star Ghost Axe realm cultivator, the same as her. Yet, his abilities had reached a level far beyond the known limits of that realm, making him a monster of incredible power. Fang Yi calmly asked Ji Royan if she truly meant that she felt she was not worthy of inviting him. With the weight of her superior's authority on her, she confirmed his words, saying there was nothing to deny. She explained that the order to involve him had come from High Command, and she was certain that they would come to invite him personally in the future. Fang Yi let out a small laugh, telling her it wasn't necessary to be so formal. He placed a hand on his chest and explained that he genuinely respected all of them, knowing that not everyone had the courage to sacrifice themselves for others. He admitted that he had never seen soldiers in combat before, and what he had just seen had truly moved him. Touched by his sincerity, Ji Royan could only offer a quiet thank you. He then made an offer of his own. He told her that if they ever ran into trouble in the future, they could call on him for help, just as they had always done for ordinary people like him in the past. However, he added one important condition. They could not interfere with his personal cultivation or restrict his freedom. His unexpected proposal left Ji Royan momentarily stunned. With their business concluded, Fang Yi announced that it was getting late and he should be leaving. Ji Royan agreed, saying that she and Wang Liang still had to get rid of the mutated creature's body and that she would arrange for someone to take him back. As he stood before the soldiers, Fang Yi finally understood the military's true purpose in this new era. He realized they stationed themselves in these dangerous, spiritually rich zones for two reasons: to use the energy for their own training, and more importantly, to act as a crucial line of defense between the ordinary world and the strange monsters that now threatened it. After he was gone, Ji Royan turned to Wang Liang and said that his friend could no longer be described with a simple word, like impressive. She knew that what they had seen that day was just a small part of his true strength. The fact that a pioneer could reach such a high level of power so quickly showed that he had an amazing level of insight. She concluded that he was a rare mix of luck, courage, and raw ability, all the things needed for greatness. Seeing his commander's deep respect for his friend, Wang Liang eagerly suggested that if she felt she wasn't the right person to recruit him, she should let him, as his childhood friend, take on the job. Ji Royan, however, quickly brought him back to reality with a sharp tap on the head, ordering him to stop talking and help her clean up. He could only agree as he was dragged off to work. Later that night, back at his apartment building, Fang Yi meditated on the roof, surrounded by a brilliant golden aura. He thought about his meeting with the military. He knew that while the trip had revealed his identity, he had only shown them his thunder attribute, keeping his other powers a secret. Based on their respectful attitude, he concluded that this was likely a good thing. He now understood that his rare thunder attribute was a perfect counter to the dark monsters the military was fighting, making him a very valuable asset. He knew they would try to recruit him, not threaten him, which would give him access to the fastest ways to get stronger and the most advanced information. The day's events had also made clear the different roles of the nation's two main pioneer forces. The military, represented by Ji Royan, were the Night Watchers, the hidden protectors of the nation. The Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, with agents like Su Qingying, was in charge of handling the threats that slipped into the cities, protecting civilian life as much as possible. He understood the government's two-part strategy, using the forbidden zones to contain the biggest dangers while slowly releasing information to the public about the coming changes. This careful approach was buying valuable time, preventing society from collapsing into chaos. As he continued his meditation, a bright orb of golden energy pulsed in his core. He noted that despite absorbing the rich energy of the forbidden zone, he hadn't felt an immediate need to level up. However, the feeling quickly changed. Golden energy surged through him, and cracks of power spread across his face. Having spent even a short time in such a spiritually rich place had filled him to the brim. He recognized the signs immediately. He was on the verge of another breakthrough. Meanwhile, on the streets below, his cousin Lin Yi was walking home with groceries, wondering if he had returned yet. She thought that if he was home, she could have him try her cooking. Her casual thoughts were suddenly shattered when she looked up and saw a massive pillar of golden light erupting into the night sky from the direction of her apartment building. Her eyes widened in shock and alarm. A reflection of a flaming divine axe appeared in her eye as she recognized the powerful energy of a ghost axe realm advancement. But she immediately knew she was wrong. The sheer scale of the power, showing up as a massive fiery divine axe in the sky, was far too terrifying for an ordinary breakthrough. She could only stare in disbelief, wondering if another powerful pioneer was making their move in the city. On the street below, Lin Yi stared at the sky in complete disbelief. She recognized the immense power of the Ghost Axe realm, but this was something else, a force so powerful it was changing reality itself. As a giant, divine hand made of pure golden energy formed in the clouds above, she realized the terrifying truth. This was the power of the legendary spirit creation realm. The realization that a pioneer of such incredible strength was living right next to her sent a wave of shock and fear through her. The massive energy surge did not go unnoticed. Miles away, in a high-tech command center, red alarms blared as technicians scrambled. An urgent warning flashed across their screens. The anomaly value had reached a catastrophic level of 99, its location pinpointed to the southeast of the city. An official and Su Qingying reacted with alarm. The official demanded to know what was happening, ordering all units to the target area. Su Qingying wondered how such a powerful anomaly could have gone undetected, noting that an energy reading of this size was powerful enough to destroy an entire city. Before a holographic map of the city, military leaders held a tense emergency meeting. They debated the two terrifying possibilities. Either a new, godlike spirit creation pioneer had just appeared, or the city was on the brink of a massive disaster. One grim-faced officer suggested it could very well be both. The situation escalated as the senior official frantically called headquarters, demanding they send all advanced equipment, short of large-scale weapons. His panic was cut short, however, when a subordinate burst into the room, breathlessly announcing that the alert had been cancelled. The anomaly had been identified not as a monster, but as a pioneer undergoing a promotion. Back on the rooftop, the blinding golden light faded as Fang Yi let out a quiet breath of relief. The breakthrough was complete. He casually noted that he had successfully reached the one-star spirit creation realm. Aside from his body feeling lighter and more agile, he didn't feel a significant difference in his raw power. His quiet moment was interrupted when his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from his friend, Wang Liang. The message was a warning. A new anomaly had appeared at Qingcheng University's playground. Internal military sources had confirmed it was a pollution zone, and more worryingly, it was the second time this specific anomaly had occurred. Fang Yi texted back, saying he knew about the previous heat anomaly. Wang Liang confirmed it was the same one, back again, and playfully warned Fang Yi not to tell anyone he was the source of the intel. After Fang Yi jokingly threatened to report him, Wang Liang's tone turned serious. He told Fang Yi that he was genuinely worried for his safety and urged him to be careful. Fang Yi put down his phone, his expression thoughtful. His friend's warning only confirmed his own strategy. This was exactly why he was so cautious in his dealings with both the military and the association. He knew that being too well known could bring unwanted trouble, which was why he had deliberately chosen to keep his powerful Yang Flame attribute and his Crimson Flame Blade technique a secret. They were his hidden aces. He typed a final reply to his friend, reassuring him not to worry. He would be careful, and he still had trump cards left to play. Lin Yi opened the apartment door, announcing that she was back. Seeing Fang Yi on the couch, she asked if he had eaten yet, offering him the bag of takeout she had brought. Distracted by his phone, he simply told her to leave it on the table and that he would get to it later. As she watched him, a worried and slightly frustrated expression crossed her face. In her mind, she thought about her cousin's character. She saw him as a perfectly good person, but with one major flaw, his laziness. He seemed content to just stay at home all day playing on his phone, not even bothering to go to college. She found it ironic that while she and her fellow pioneers were constantly busy, seeking opportunities and hiding their true identities, her cousin lived such a carefree, seemingly aimless life. Exhausted, she went to her room and collapsed onto her bed. She knew that news of the incredible spirit creation pioneer who had just appeared in their district would spread like wildfire. Feeling a sense of duty, she resolved that when the time came, she would protect her seemingly clueless cousin as a way of repaying him. Meanwhile, Fang Yi was not just playing on his phone. He was analyzing the news report from Wang Liang, which showed a massive, raging fire at the university playground. He noted that the first anomaly had been intense heat, and now it was a fire. He wondered if this was another form of the Yang attribute. The video showed the fire had started incredibly fast and was burning with terrifying intensity. Online comments from witnesses expressed shock, with some wondering if special forces were now being called in for simple fires. The report also mentioned that all the surrounding trees and flower beds had been burned and the area was now completely locked down. Fang Yi observed that the video was short and ended suddenly, but it was clear this situation was far more serious than the previous incident at the university. He wondered what would be different about this new Yang attribute. Realizing he had to investigate in person, he knew that to get into the sealed-off area, he would have to contact his new military acquaintance, Ji Royan. The next day, a crowd of reporters had gathered outside the sealed gates of Qingcheng University, blocked by a line of soldiers. They shouted questions, asking for confirmation about the rumors of a fire that couldn't be put out, and demanding to know why an incident of this size was not being reported in the news. As the reporters pressed for answers, Ji Ruoyan and Fang Yi arrived. The crowd watched, wondering who these two imposing figures were as the soldiers immediately opened the gates, allowing them to pass without question. The reporters were left outside, confused as to how they had gotten in so easily when they had been completely blocked. Inside the cordoned-off area, they looked out over the smoldering ruins of the university playground. Fang Yi remarked on the sheer destructive power, questioning if this was the sky fire he had heard about. Ji Ruoyan confirmed that was its official name. She explained its terrifying nature. It appeared without warning, was impossible to put out, and could only be left to burn itself out until everything it wanted was turned to ash. The name, she suggested, was quite fitting. With the initial look done, Ji Ruoyan told Fang Yi she needed to head to the principal's office and asked if he would wait for her. He told her to go on ahead, saying he would be fine there. Alone, Fang Yi walked along the edge of the destroyed area, which was now blocked off with yellow tape. He knelt and touched the scorched earth, analyzing the scene. He noted that the ground was already cold, and more importantly, there was no leftover spiritual power left from the sky fire. He realized with some disappointment that this meant he couldn't collect its attribute. His plan had been too simple. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted when a familiar voice called his name. He looked up to see his ex-girlfriend, Chu Qingli, standing on the steps nearby with a friend. She asked in surprise what he was doing there. Her friend with glasses immediately recognized his name, asking Chu Qingli if this was the ex-boyfriend she had mentioned, the one who had only gotten into a vocational college. Chu Qingli simply confirmed it was him. The friend then patted Chu Qingli's shoulder with a smug, condescending look. She told Fang Yi that she understood he was likely there because he was still hung up on his ex, but now that the gap between their lives was so big, he should just give up. Fang Yi could only stare back, genuinely confused by her assumption, questioning the very idea that he would be hung up on her. From a distance, other students began to gossip about the scene. They wondered who the guy with the school beauty Chu Qingli was, guessing he must be another sad suitor. They noted he didn't look like a student from their university and complained about how security could have let an outsider in. Chu Qingli's friend with glasses stepped forward, aggressively confronting Fang Yi. She told him that Chu Qingli was now the university's campus belle and that he should think clearly about his actions. She warned him that countless guys far better than him were pursuing her and that he didn't even rank. She ordered him to leave, telling him this was not a place he belonged. She then threatened to report him to the disciplinary office if he didn't explain how he got in. Meanwhile, Chu Qingli watched him with a complicated expression. She remembered him claiming he wouldn't regret their breakup, yet here he was. She concluded that his previous lack of interest must have been an act, and that he was just putting on a brave face. Their confrontation was interrupted when Ji Ruoyan returned, asking Fang Yi if the girl was his friend. Chu Qingli was surprised by the sudden appearance of the imposing red-haired woman. Fang Yi coolly dismissed the idea, clarifying that they were merely high school classmates and couldn't be considered friends. Ji Ruoyan accepted his explanation, simply saying they were just classmates. Ji Ruoyan then put on a pair of sunglasses, her already intimidating presence growing even stronger. Both Chu Qingli and her friend were visibly nervous by the woman's powerful aura, wondering who she was and how she could possibly know someone like Fang Yi. Ji Ruoyan then turned to Fang Yi with an update. She explained that she had spoken with the principal, and the matter of the sky fire was more complicated than they had thought. She told him that the principal was coming to take them to the fire's starting point, and since Fang Yi was now a special military consultant, his presence was required. Fang Yi agreed without any issue. Just then, a group of stern-looking officials in suits arrived, ordering everyone to scatter and announcing that the playground was to remain sealed off. Chu Qingli gasped in shock, recognizing the man leading the group as the university's principal. The other students were equally stunned. The principal was known to be an incredibly busy and hard-to-find figure, someone who was rarely seen on campus. They realized with awe that he had come personally to meet with Fang Yi and the mysterious red-haired woman. Chu Qingli's friend, however, completely misread the situation. She smirked, thinking that the principal had finally arrived to deal with the two people who weren't supposed to be there. Chu Qingli, however, remained silent, a look of uncertainty on her face. To the absolute shock of Chu Qingli and her friend, the principal and his group did not approach Fang Yi and Ji Ruoyan as trespassers. Instead, the elderly principal walked directly up to Fang Yi and greeted him with a warm, respectful handshake. He addressed Fang Yi as the consultant introduced by Ji Ruoyan, explaining how worried he had been about the school's recent anomalies and the safety of the students. He expressed his immense relief that they had come to solve the situation. In an even more stunning display, the principal then bowed slightly to Fang Yi, formally putting him in charge of the entire playground matter. From where she stood, Chu Qingli could only watch, her eyes wide with total disbelief as her entire view of her ex-boyfriend was shattered in an instant. The principal's security then moved to secure the area, forming a human barrier and ordering all unrelated people to step back. As the crowd of students, including Chu Qingli, was pushed away, they buzzed with confusion, unable to understand why their respected principal was bowing to such a young man. Lost in the crowd, Chu Qingli listened as the students' opinions changed around her. They now guessed that Fang Yi must have some extraordinary special identity to deserve such treatment. Someone recalled that just moments ago, he had been dismissed as Chu Qingli's suitor or ex-boyfriend. Another person remarked on the complete reversal of status, suggesting that now, even if she were to pursue him, she might not even be able to get his attention. The final cutting realization settled in as the crowd noticed that throughout the entire exchange, the young man had not once looked at or acknowledged the campus belle, leaving her to stand alone and completely ignored. At Qingcheng University's North District, the principal led Fang Yi and Ji Ruoyan to the site of the anomaly. He explained the series of events, starting with the Golden Sun incident, which he had hoped was the end of their problems. However, a few nights ago, a fire had started on a playground. A fire so intense that even the fire department couldn't put it out. He was thankful it happened at night when no students were around, allowing them to quickly seal off the area. The principal continued, his face growing more serious. While a single fire might have been a fluke, it was followed by fires on 2 more playgrounds. He said he had personally seen a crimson flame come down from the sky and float in mid-air, a clear sign of a supernatural event. He told them that while the other fires were eventually put out, one still remained. As they got closer to the supernatural event, he told them that while the other fires were eventually put out, one still remained. As they got closer to the final location, Fang Yi noted the sharp, choking smell of something burning. They arrived at a basketball court where a single hoop was on fire with a raging eternal flame. The principal confirmed this was the starting point, the one fire that simply could not be put out. As they watched the anomaly, Ji Ruoyan checked a device on her wrist, which showed a reading of 11. She explained to Fang Yi that it was a basic spiritual anomaly detector. She clarified that any reading over 10 was considered a disaster for ordinary people, requiring a complete lockdown. Suddenly, the device began to flash and beep wildly, the reading shooting up to 60. Ji Ruoyan cried out in alarm at how high the value had become. Panicked, she warned the principal that if the energy kept rising, it wouldn't just affect the university, but the entire city. She declared they needed to immediately send an elite squad of pioneers to contain the threat. Before they could act on the plan, however, Fang Yi took matters into his own hands. Without a word, he leaped over the chain-link fence, ignoring the no-entry sign and heading directly into the fire. He was instantly covered by the intense flames, as Ji Ruoyan and the principal watched in shock. At that exact moment, the reading on Ji Ruoyan's device jumped again, now showing an incredible 110. She shouted that the anomaly had just been upgraded to S level. The principal, panicked, asked what they were supposed to do now that Fang Yi was inside. Ji Ruoyan could only stare into the fire, questioning his recklessness and muttering that even the strongest soldier from the Forbidden Zone wouldn't dare to enter such a dangerous area alone. Inside the fire, however, Fang Yi stood completely unharmed, his silhouette calm against the raging flames. He knew that just as his Yang attribute had protected him from the divine thunder, it could also shield him from this sky fire. But he quickly found a major problem. While his power was protecting him, it also stopped him from touching the source flame itself, which meant he couldn't activate his system's ability to create a new technique. Realizing his protective aura was both a help and a hindrance, Fang Yi knew he had to get to the source flame. He watched as the fire wrapped around the basketball hoop like a great fiery dragon, understanding that he needed to get to its heart. Without hesitation, he prepared to face the fire head-on as the fiery dragon lunged toward him with a ferocious roar. In an incredibly risky move, he deliberately turned off his Golden Sun protective aura, leaving himself completely vulnerable. The sky fire instantly rushed in, covering his body in a storm of raw, burning energy. He gritted his teeth against the searing pain as the flames burned him, but he forced his hand forward, determined to touch the anomaly's core. His gamble worked. The moment his hand touched the source, his system activated, confirming it had detected the strong fluctuation of the Skyfire attribute. Despite the pain, a determined grin spread across his face. He was amazed at the Skyfire's power. noting its will was even stronger than the desolation attribute he had recently gotten. With fierce determination, he declared that he would absorb this power no matter the cost. The system began its final calculation, successfully compiling the new data. With a triumphant smirk, he knew he had succeeded. A new system window appeared, announcing his reward. He had obtained the Skyfire attribute technique, the 9 Dragons Skyfire sealing art, a power designed to eliminate evil and seal all demons. As he mastered the new ability, the once wild flames became extensions of his will, wrapping around his arm like a tame dragon. The system confirmed that the compiled technique was now unlocked and ready for immediate use. As he focused his will, he began the final process of extracting the Skyfire attribute itself, absorbing its essence directly into his being. His eyes began to glow with a burning red light as fiery markings appeared on his face, a physical sign of his new power. With his hands clasped in a seal and his eyes burning with red energy, he prepared to unleash his newfound ability, calling out the name of the 9 Dragons Skyfire sealing art. As Fang Yi unleashed his new power, massive, glowing red chains erupted from his back, lashing out into the fire. Outside the fence, Ji Royan and the principal watched in awe. Ji Royan immediately recognized the energy signature, identifying it as a sealing aura. She remembered seeing a high-level military pioneer seal a forbidden land once before. While their methods were different, the powerful sealing aura was unmistakably similar. With a single command to shrink, Fang Yi commanded the chains to pull back. They pulled inward with immense force, gathering all of the wild skyfire and squeezing it into a single, tightly bound orb of pure energy. Floating in the air, Fang Yi held the chained ball of fire, the sealing process now complete. The sealed orb of fire then gently floated back down towards the basketball hoop. Fang Yi landed gracefully and explained the situation to the principal and Ji Royan. He stated that he had temporarily sealed the skyfire and told them not to unseal the playground or allow anyone near it for repairs. This, he explained, would at least stop the fire from spreading any further. The principal readily agreed, assuring him that the playground would remain sealed, adding that it wasn't a problem since the university had 7 or 8 others. Ji Royan, however, watched Fang Yi with a silent, intense look, her expression hard to read. The principal, very impressed, remarked on how humorous Fang Yi was and offered any further help he might need. Ji Royan, however, interrupted, telling the principal she needed to speak with Fang Yi about some things. The principal happily excused himself, leaving the two of them alone. Once he was gone, Ji Royan turned to Fang Yi, her tone direct and serious. She told him that he had been hiding his true depths very well. Fang Yi tried to play it off casually, saying that the skyfire was indeed powerful and hard to deal with, but she saw right through his act. With a sharp look, she told him to stop pretending, making it clear that she wasn't talking about the fire, but about his own incredible talent and level of power. Ji Royan dropped her intense questioning, admitting that it was normal for pioneers to have secrets, especially for one as powerful as him. Fang Yi simply listened with a calm expression. Her tone then shifted, becoming more serious and sincere. She explained that although she had no right to ask anything of him, she hoped he would listen carefully. She painted a dark picture of a future world in chaos, a time of great change where the Xia nation would desperately need top-tier talents like him. She put his potential into clear perspective, telling him that once the spiritual energy fully revived, a person of his power would be as important as a modern-day nuclear weapon. Because of this, she warned, every major power, from the various military forbidden zones to the Spiritual Energy Association, would rush to recruit him. She told him to be prepared for high-level officials to personally give him invitations with incredibly generous offers. She admitted she had her own reasons for telling him this. If he were to join her military unit, it would be a great asset, and they would gain a powerful friend. Therefore, she advised him to start thinking about his options now, so he wouldn't be caught off guard when the time came. Fang Yi, however, was silent for a moment before asking a curious question. He asked why both she and Wang Liang seemed so hesitant to recruit him for their own forbidden zone, even acting as if they weren't worthy. Ji Royan explained that it was because of another legendary military region, a group so insanely powerful that she felt he would be far more interested in joining them instead. A small smirk appeared on Fang Yi's face as he confirmed if she meant a top-level unit. She confirmed that was the case, though she admitted she hadn't seen them much herself. She had heard they were extremely busy lately, so much so that even officers from other military regions were feeling the pressure of their activities. Changing the subject, she suggested they stop talking and go, as the principal had invited them to eat at the university cafeteria. As they walked, Fang Yi silently concluded that even the nation's most powerful forces were facing their own big troubles. His mind raced with the implications. Ji Ruoyan's words meant that terrifying anomalies, with power far beyond the capabilities of current pioneers, had already begun to appear. He realized that the pioneers fighting these threats must include spirit creation realm cultivators like himself, and perhaps some who were even stronger. A new sense of urgency washed over him. He felt that the day of the full spiritual energy revival was fast approaching, and his preparations were still far from enough. His thoughts then shifted back to the immediate task at hand, how to best use the Skyfire attribute he had just collected. He analyzed its nature, an irregular, wild, and all-consuming flame that left nothing in its wake. He realized it would be the perfect weapon against anomalies that could reproduce or regenerate endlessly. Suddenly, an idea struck him. The wild and powerful nature of the Skyfire was a perfect match for his Crimson Flame Blade technique. He imagined enchanting his sword with this new power, realizing it would be an incredible enhancement to his fighting style.